Yo, what is up guys, your boy IzuKage here with part 2 of What If Naruto. Yo, what is up guys, your boy IzuKage here with part 2 of What If... Yo, what is up guys, your boy IzuKage here with part 2 of What If Deku was Kratos. You guys enjoyed part 1, so I'm here with part 2. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy the What If. So last time we left off with Izuku being taken in by the police and Inko actually arriving. So how that ended, Inko just explained to the officers that this is because of his quirk, and if he gets too angry he loses control of himself and attacks everyone around him without remorse. So the police chief and All Might do believe this because they check Izuku's records, and even the doctor's reports with him said he's very aggressive. So the officer gave Inko the address of a nearby anger management club. I know we've all been there before, right? No, just me. You guys could have just said yes to make me feel better, but you know, it's okay. So Inko and Izuku went home, and at home they sit down at the dining table, and she says to Izuku, "It's time I finally tell you about your father." And Izuku raised an eyebrow saying, "My father? What's there to talk about? You know, you said he died in a villain attack before I was born." Inko looked down at the table and she said, "Well, that was a lie. Your father is actually alive and his name isn't Hisashi. I would explain everything, but I think it would be easier to show you." Izuku was surprised and he didn't know whether to be angry or to be happy. You know, happy his father is alive, but angry his mom would lie like that. So Inko said they would have to drive there tomorrow. So get some rest. The next day, after eating breakfast, having a nice bath, Inko and Izuku were on the road going north. This trip would actually take several days, and they would reach the most northern region of Japan, Hokkaido. And anyone who knows Japan knows that Hokkaido is not a part of the main island, so they would have to take a boat ride over there. Once there, Izuku and Inko crash at a motel in some part, like the hilly areas of that region, and it's snowing. So in their motel, Inko tells Izuku that he'll finally be able to meet his father, and Izuku was very happy, you know, understandably, he's never met him before. So when it turned to nighttime, they went out and Inko hopped in their rented car and drove to the forest. Izuku, when they finally reached there, she parked up and Izuku was like, "Are you sure this is the right place?" And Inko nodded. But this entire time Izuku is thinking, why does he live out in the forest in the middle of nowhere? So, but I mean, you know, he won't judge until he meets him. So they get out and Inko led the way. They went through miles of snowy forest and Izuku thought they would be out there for hours, but once he began feeling tired, they finally saw their destination, a cave opening. And it was pretty dark, but once they started walking into the cave, they saw a red light shimmering. So they walked closer and closer until they entered a huge opening with a small pool of water in the middle, of the entire place. Izuku said to his mom, "Mom, are you okay? Because this doesn't look like a house. How could our father be here?" And Inko just said, "Hush," and jump in. Izuku said, "Jump in, I'll get everything wet." And Inko face palms and says, "Stick your hand in the water, then pull it out." So he does as he instructed, and when he pulls out his hand, it was completely dry. And Inko said, "So with that out of the way, jump in." And you know, Izuku wasn't scared, but just reluctant because he couldn't see the bottom. It just seemed endless. Inko was just over this and grabs Izuku and they both jump in. And well, you know, he jumped in involuntarily. And the two get transported to a completely different world, not of this earth, to Mount Olympus, a beautiful place of the gods, and it was a Roman style building atop a mountain. I'll put up a picture on screen now if I remember, because I can't tell how many times I've said that and I forget. So yeah, they surface out of a lake they circus out of one of the lakes in and around Mount Olympus, and Inko got up and helped Izuku out. And one thing like Izuku realized was, his mom seemed a bit fitter, like her old self, and Izuku, he feels stronger, faster, and overall a lot more healthy. That's actually the effect of a mortal being in Mount Olympus. It brings out their best self, meaning like their best physical state they could achieve at the time. So Inko started walking up these long staircase, and Izuku just followed behind her. While they were walking, he could see small babies with arrows flying around, and they had wings, and women flying overhead as well. And it just looked magical. So they get to the top and they enter this huge building, easily 30 meters in height. So they follow, also if you don't know meters, then too bad. So they follow the carpet in the middle of the room, and this leads them to an empty throne. And this wasn't like any regular king's throne. This was several times bigger than any like chair Izuku would sit in, like it was made for giants. Inko looked confused, like she was expecting someone, but then the sound of heavy footsteps began coming closer and closer, each step shaking the ground. And through the door enter a giant man, like he walks in. He's around 15 meters, so imagine a regular sized Titan from Attack on Titan. And he was wearing red silk clothing, and it was like a sash, so half his chest was exposed. Again, an image on screen will help you understand. The man walked closer and then looked down, and he was squinting his eyes trying to see who it was. And he looked at Izuku and he doesn't really know him. But when he lays his eyes on Inko, his eyes like brighten up and he starts shrinking down to their level and comes up and hugs Inko, actually lifting her off the ground and swinging her around. Izuku was quite confused and he asked Inko like who this guy is. And Inko smiled and said, "This is your father, Izuku." And the man, who is actually Zeus, approached Izuku and extended his arm for a handshake. But Izuku didn't. He actually ran in and, my English today, man. He ran in and gave his father a hug, and slightly tearing up, he said, "It's good to see you, Dad." And Zeus responds, "It's good to see you too, my son." So he releases the hug, and Zeus asks Inko like why she's here. Not that he doesn't want her to be here, but he hasn't seen her in over a decade. Inko explained that Izuku is having trouble with his newfound powers, and she thought he would be the best person to ask. And Zeus, hearing this, was really happy, like excited that Izuku actually awakened his god powers. Zeus placed a hand on Izuku's chest and breathed in, and he sent a lightning bolt through his chest, killing him. I'm joking. Zeus used this lightning bolt to open a few of the blocks he put on Izuku's power to weaken him in the mortal world, and in the process unlocking some of his inherited abilities like lightning manipulation. Izuku could feel this newfound strength flowing through his body. His muscles began becoming more defined, and he grew a few inches. He felt great, but Zeus again placed his hand on his chest and activated the restrictions again. Izuku was confused and asked why did he take them away, and Zeus called him over to him, and he put his hand around his shoulder and began to walk around the palace, to have a heart-to-heart. "Izuku, my son, you will have to figure out a way to gain your true strength on your own, and the more control you have of that power, the more you have of your rage. I just activated everything so that you knew how much potential lay dormant within you," pointing to his chest. And he says, "Consider it punishment for what you did on the mortal plane. You may not have had control, but actions have consequences, and how can I be a good dad without disciplining my son?" And he began laughing, and Izuku just had that look like, "Really, bruh? You gonna do me like that?" But he can't really do much about it. So Zeus went back to Inko and gave her a kiss and led them both back to the lake they came out of. But before they went, Zeus remembered something. He's like, "Izuku, I have a gift for you. Consider it a makeup for all the missed birthdays." And he touched Izuku again, and this time unlocked his wings. Izuku looked back, admiring his wings, and they were like a divine golden color. And Zeus said again, just think about them being gone and they will recede back into your back, so they're not always out. And Inko and Izuku jump through the lake back into the cave. And also, before I get any further, I just want to say something real quick. Don't worry, I didn't forget about like his chaos blades, those will come up soon. The boots of Hermes, sun shield, all of those, it'll be coming. So yeah, Izuku is in the cave and he takes Inko out. They walk out together, and when he activates his wings again, he realized that they changed color. Like they went back to sort of a brownish color. So Izuku just thinks maybe, that's just a thing with being in Mount Olympus. Everything has to be divine. But yeah, he grabs Inko and they just fly back to like their house. It didn't take a day, obviously. Like it's really far, like Hokkaido from where they actually live. Yeah, it is really far. So it takes a few days to reach there, but they finally do. And when they do, Inko is just completely exhausted. Like she just wants to sleep, and so does Izuku, honestly. So with 7 months left until the UA entrance exam, Izuku uses this time to try and figure out how he can unlock his different abilities. For example, he tries electrocuting himself for the lightning manipulation. Like he climbs up on an electric pole and like touches the wire, and it literally almost kills him. And this causes him to fall to the post, like breaking his arm. But something Izuku didn't realize before was he had regeneration. Like his hand would just snap back into place, and like the broken bone would be reconnected, fusing and leaving it actually even stronger than before. So while Izuku was going around trying to test all his theories, he came to Dagobah Beach. And at the beach he saw two people training. A master on what looked like to be a student, or a father and son, something. And this was actually Kirishima. He was being trained by All Might because he was the one to receive One for All. In this, Kirishima was actually ran in to save Bakugo. He was so amazed by Mina, like her bravery when she saved those two girls back when they were kids, that when he came across a situation with Bakugo, he couldn't like help himself but save him. And All Might, seeing his bravery, passed One for All onto him, which is a terrible decision. All my manga readers, they would know. Actually, comment if you know what I'm talking about. Why is it a bad idea for Kirishima to get One for All? So Izuku asked to spar against Kirishima because he saw him training and he was pretty strong. Also, All Might realized who this kid was, like who came up to like challenge Kirishima to like a fight. Basically, it was that kid from when he got his ass beat. It wasn't even that long ago, like a month ago. But yeah, Izuku, All Might knew about Izuku, so he was still wary around him. But yeah, Kirishima and Izuku actually square up to fight. And they were stood a good distance away near the shoreline, and this would cause it to be harder to run because it's sand. So when they were both ready, All Might calls the match, and Izuku sprouts his wings and flies right at Kirishima, completely like negating the effect of the sand. He doesn't need to run. So he flies like almost top speed at Kirishima and punches him like in the gut. And this sends him to the ground, but good thing like at the last minute he hardened, because that would have caused severe damage. But yeah, All Might and Izuku ran up to check if he was alright, and Kirishima got up saying, "That was so manly, how are you so strong?" And Izuku smirked a little at his enthusiasm and just said, he's got a strong quirk, what can he say? Kirishima goes for the high five, and Izuku, he doesn't leave him hanging, he gives him one as well. So for the last month leading up to the UA entrance exam, Izuku, the last months I should say, like 6+ months, Izuku would train with Kirishima sometimes, but mostly by himself. But in all this time, he couldn't figure out a way to unlock any of his god abilities. So at the entrance exam, Izuku walks into the school. He is really excited and he doesn't trip. Like, why would a god trip? So he gets in, and he isn't any smarter or dumber than Canon. So I'd have him do fine on the test, basically the same that he did in canon. And finally, when they go to President Mike's announcement of all the robots and things, he sits down in the hall, and he was actually next to Bakugo. And when Bakugo realized this, he tensed up, and all he could think of was like the pain he felt when Izuku literally stomped repeatedly into his back. So President Mike goes on, and Ida still does his thing. He asks President Mike if the 0-pointer is being excluded was an error on the school's part, because that's not very professional. President Mike said, "First off, kid, get off your high horse. You aren't better than me in any way, shape, or form." And he said, "Second, I was getting to that." And people around started chuckling a bit, and Ida just had to sit in shame. So when President Mike finished, he instructed people to go to the gate numbers written on their seats, so everyone does. And there Izuku stays towards the back of the gate room, and that's to not draw any attention to himself. So when he was waiting for the match to start, President Mike actually came over the comms and says, "There's no countdown in a real fight. Go, go, go!" Everyone rushed out running top speed, but Izuku was just chilling. He was slowly walking out, hands in his pockets, and the teacher in the observation room were watching. They thought this kid was just cocky, but they would soon shut up. When Izuku sprouted his wings, which he made custom holes in his shirt, so like they don't rip through his shirts, the wings. And he flew into the training ground, tearing down robot after robot, sometimes grabbing them, flying up into the air and letting them fall to their destruction. And he was just completely massacring everything, and All Might, Eraserhead, Midnight, Nezu, and more heroes in the observation room were all dumbfounded by this kid's raw ability. He was like a god among men. Get the reference? Izuku went on a killing spree of robots, destroying them with his bare hands, and Izuku had spent 10 minutes doing this almost non-stop. Then he would decide to let everyone, he would decide to rest and go chill and leave the rest for everyone else. But he couldn't rest for long when the sound of a large thud could be heard throughout the mock city, and the screams of students as well, running away. Izuku thought finally something worth his attention, and he looked up. He looked over the edge of the building and looked around the city, and to find the 0-pointer, a massive robot coming towards him. Izuku, seeing this, had a grin come across his face, and he was ready to charge right at it, but the scream of a girl was heard below. He looked down, and a girl with pink dreadlocks was trapped under the rubble. Izuku went down and just simply threw the slabs of rock off her, and he asked, if she could walk, and she tried, but she stumbled over. And Izuku, pressed for time, just picks her up, and by the description, you already know it's Mei Hatsumi. So he picks Mei up, bridal style, and the robot was right above them. Izuku could escape, but he could escape in style. The robot slammed its foot down on the tube, but he dodges and flies up to the head of the robot, still holding Mei. Then he actually lets her go, then flies towards the robot's head, using his foot to kick into it with the same force equivalent to Izuku's punch from canon, and also using this as a platform to jump off the robot's head and to catch Mei back mid-air, and then just flew back to the exit. He landed, and all the participants were looking at him dumbfounded, how did he even do any of that? And the teachers had the same question, who is this kid? So after all of that, Izuku just made his way back home. Mei got, medical attention and things like that, but he didn't stick around to talk to anyone. He just went home. At home, Inko asked how was the exam, and Izuku said, it was fine. He's pretty sure he passed. And Inko said, yeah, it's only expected from you, Izuku. Well, did he actually pass? We won't find out, because that is where I'm going to be leaving this one off. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of the video. In the comments of this, I'll have a comment saying if this comment hits a certain amount of likes, then I'll do a live stream, but you can also reply to it and say no. So if there's more comments saying no than likes, then I won't do it tonight. And if like, wait, no, if they're saying if no is more, then I'll do it tomorrow, but if there's more likes, then I'll just do it tonight. Why not? So yeah, if you liked it, like, and if you like my content in general, consider subscribing. I mean, it's free. So I'll see you guys in the next What If.